Hello, sir. Good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon. So we are waiting for like people to join, or we are already live.
Yeah, we can start.
Okay, okay.
Okay. So, good afternoon, sir, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm Pranjal, and I welcome you all to Full Stack Squared, powered by the AdSign Company. I'm more than curious to tell every one of you that millions of people surf on internet every day and every hour, and that number is increasing rapidly, right? So, I'm sure you're curious to know that what components play the sigma role in all of this. Further, to give brief introduction about Angular, we have our expert speaker Santosh Yadav with us. Before we begin, I'd like to mention that if you have any questions, please type them into the chat box. Our speaker will address all of them in the end. So, without a further delay, let me introduce you all to our speaker, Santosh Yadav, who has more than 12 years of experience in programming and is a solution oriented person. Santosh expert for Angular and a celebrated GitHub star. Along with being curious about contributing to open source, he also works as a software consultant. Hello, Santosh. It's an honor to have you with us, and I request you to please take over the session ahead.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Pranjal. So, hey everyone, thanks for joining us today. And let me just share my screen. So, okay, can you see the slides now? Can you come, Pranjal? Pranjal, I think you have to add the screen, or
Yes,
is
sir.
it
Please keep
visible?
going.
Can you confirm?
It is not visible. I'll add it.
Okay, okay, okay. Okay, if it is visible, let's go ahead. I'm sure it is visible to everyone. Okay, so hey everyone, thanks for joining. And as Pranjal mentioned, we are going to talk about Angular. So, of course, 45 minutes is like very less time to introduce you to the Angular, but I will let you know how you can. And we'll do a basic example from like creating an application to doing some data binding to actually making some API calls. So let's go ahead and in case you have any questions after the session, you can reach out to me on Twitter or LinkedIn, whichever way you prefer. My Twitter handle is Santosh Yadav Dev, and same for LinkedIn, as well as in case you want to follow me on GitHub, it's the same. It's so Pranjal, it's not visible. I think yeah, you have to add it. I think I can just see myself and you. That's it. Anjali there.
Oh, yes, sir. I'm added. Your screen is visible.
Ah, now it's visible. Yeah. So, yep. And now I hope now you can see. So it's my Twitter handle is Santosh Yadav Dev, and same for LinkedIn and GitHub. So, in case you want to follow up after the session and you want to learn more, I'll be able to share more guide in case you need it. And I have few videos available at my YouTube channel, which is Tech Talks with Santosh. You can also visit the same. It will give you enough material for like 2 week or three, where you can learn about basics of TypeScript and basics of Angular. But let's go ahead and get started. So why should we use Angular, right? So Angular really shines in enterprises where productivity is really important. So Angular lets you actually bring your product to market a lot faster, just because it was built using the keeping the productivity in mind. It uses the latest tool sets. It uses TypeScript from the day one. It has a lot of amazing features in terms of how to make API calls, how to create forms, how to do uh, let's say dependency injection, or how to use services. And it also has like it keeps they keep releasing every 6 months, so it's always up to date. Web is growing faster, right? I mean, whatever we learned like probably 2 years ago, that might not exist today. It's just that much fast. Believe me, I've been coding from 13 years, and I've seen uh, in last few years the kind of innovation in has been there in web space was not there back in 2008 or 2009. It is growing so much faster. You have to be like challenge yourself, and you have to learn everything, otherwise you will just feel like that like you are left behind. So what we need for this particular session, so we need Node.js, we need VS Code or any editor of your choice. I'm sure most of you might be using VS Code or anything else. That's absolutely fine. And we need little bit idea about TypeScript. I think now a lot of developers have realized what TypeScript is capable of, and they already know a little bit of TypeScript. So let's go ahead and start with what is Angular, right? So generally, when we talk about Angular, this logo comes into everyone's mind. Okay, this is what Angular is. But let me tell you, this is not Angular. This is Angular. So you can see there are a lot of tools which is actually part of the Angular ecosystem, but we generally don't talk about them. We just talk about this middle circle, which is middle logo, which says A, which is Angular. But as I said, Angular is created keeping productivity in the mind. So it has a lot of tools to support you to build your application from the scratch and take it to the production. So let's go ahead and get started. So what it has, so Angular has like built-in module for forms. Generally, when you choose any web stack or any web frameworks, you have to actually go ahead and figure out which form module to use, which form library to use. For example, if I go to React or Vue, I have to go ahead and search for them. But Angular comes with a built-in module for forms, but they come with two types of forms. So they let you choose, okay, whichever you are comfortable with, just go ahead and use that. It has built-in module for routing. Again, you don't have to go ahead and search for any external library to work with routing. You just use Angular. They already have like first-class support for routing, and you can just go ahead and use it. It has pre-configured unit testing. Each thing is removed. Now it's not pre-configured with your setup, but you will still get the advantage of unit testing. And you can also build tools. Of course, these all are not part of not the agenda for this particular session, but I'm just letting you know that this is possible. You can also create ways. You don't have to do anything. I mean, worry about service worker file, how to create that, what is the syntax and those, and how to configure it. You don't have. Angular lets you configure that with a single command. It also has support for SSR and pre-rendering. So in case you want to do server-side rendering, yes, Angular is framework you can rely on, and you can do that. Same for pre-rendering. Uh, okay, so looks like there is some internet connectivity. Run. Okay, hope my internet is working. Okay, so built-in support for localization. I am now in today's world. I think everyone or every business wants to reach each and every person, irrespective of what language they speak. And this is very important. And Angular supports the localization and internationalization. So you can do that as well. It supports the most supported format, and you can use the same format to work with localization and ITN. It has built-in support for dependency injection, which we are going to see. And if you want to use any UI library, I think Angular Material is something which you can rely on always. Just maintained by Google, and it is created by actually Angular team, and the Angular team is responsible for maintaining it as well. So it's production ready and well tested with the Angular framework as well, and many more. So let's go ahead and get started. And to do that, this is what you can do. So generally, you may have to actually go ahead and, of course, now it's an era of CLIs, right? So command line use or command line interface. So you can just go ahead and create your uh, application using CI, but Angular CLI lets you do more. So first thing which we have to do is install Angular CLI. Can someone confirm if I'm still online, because I saw the message that my internet issue. Anyone?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Okay, great. So first thing which you have to do is you have to install the Angular CLI. So you can see the command which says npm install @Angular CLI -g. So -g will install the Angular CLI globally. And in case you have previously installed Angular CLI, don't have to worry about it. You can just go ahead and run the same command. It will migrate you to the latest version. So right now I do Angular CLI installed. Let me just zoom in. So I can just do ng hyphen version to see which version of Angular CLI I am using right now. So it should be around 13 point something. So you can see right now I have Angular CLI 13.0.1 installed, and I can use this. Sorry for that. I mean, the problem is in Germany you don't get that better internet than in India, and I'm really missing that. It's the internet is really bad here, so probably you won't be able to see the video, but yeah, you will be able to hear. And then you have to create a new application or new workspace. I will not call it as a new application, but a workspace where you can actually go ahead and work by using the ng new command. So you can just go ahead and say ng new, and I will call it as Angular demo. Today's 10th Feb, right? 10th Feb. This is my workspace. So this is where all the files will be created, and we can go ahead and write the code here. So okay, it's not a valid name of this. Let's try with this Angular demo Feb. Yep. So now, once you do this, once you run this ng new command, you will be asked a few questions. The first question is, would you like to add Angular routing? Yes, we need Angular routing. Then it will ask you what kind of style you are going to use. Are you supposed to use SAS or SCSS or less? So let's go ahead and say, okay, I'm using SCSS. And it will create all these files into a folder which will start with this Angular demo web. So this folder will be created. All files which is now created will be part of this particular folder. So meanwhile, it is getting created and it will now install the dependencies. So now it's you can see it says installing packages at the end and says npm. So I'm using npm to install all the packages. Of course, you can use yarn as well in case you want to, but here it is using npm and it will install all these packages from internet, which will be little bit slow as of now because of the bad internet connection I have. But yeah, meanwhile, let's go ahead and see the slides. Once you're done, once you have created your application, what's the next thing you need? So you need the ability to actually run your application locally, and you need to see what's there. And whenever you make some changes, you need to see your changes being reflected on your browser. Sorry. So what you need to do for that is you can just go ahead and say ngserve. So ngserve is another command which is like serve my application, and once you do that, it will start the application on a port. By default, it uses port 4200, but you can change the port. But I will not suggest to do that because Angular is smart enough to recognize in case you are already using that specific port. It will tell that okay, 4200 is being used. You want to start running the application on a new port, and that's it. You don't have to worry about in case the same port is being used. And this is still running. Now, after you serve your application, what else you wants to do? So you may want to add new files to your application. You can add using Angular CLI. So in Angular, generally Angular is like component-based architecture. So what you component-based architecture is everything which you create is a component. So for example, I'll just go to angular.io website and we'll try to give you some little bit idea. For example, here, right? So you can see this. I have to talk about this application. There are multiple components placed here. So I have a navbar component, like then I have a sidebar component. I have content section. And within content section also, you have a lot of like different placeholders you can see. These are all what components. So whenever you click on say any link, what is visible? It's another component. So Angular, whatever you will be creating component, same applies to any front end technology you choose. Let's even you go to React, you go to Vue, or you go to Svelte, any XYZ uh, library or framework, you will be creating component. Even lit, you will be creating web components. So it's all about component, right? So you will be creating all those small component, and you can do that in Angular using a command called ng generate. We will see this command, and you can also create multiple things. You can create services, you can create directives. We will see service, but directive is not part of this particular session. And finally, once you are done with everything, once you have created everything, your application is ready to be deployed. You need to create a production build. Angular CLI lets you do that as well. So there is a called ng build hyphen prod, which is right now deprecated, but I will tell you the correct command. And you can still use ng build hyphen prod, but it will be removed. This hyphen prod option will be removed, not the ng build. Ng build will stay. Only the option, they have renamed the option. So it will create the production build for you. And you can take this copy once, or you can say the distributable files which will be created to any server of your choice. I prefer like using Netlify for my all open source projects. So you want to, if you want to go ahead and deploy your application, try Netlify. It's amazing. It's free for open source as well, and mm, you can play around with any. So it's not only Angular. You can go ahead and deploy React application, Vue application, any front end application on Netlify. Let's hope created and still not. Okay, let's what else we can do. Yeah, so I'll just open one of the existing application which I have, and then we'll change here. So I'll just open this with code. And let's stop this. So here you can see this all files are actually created by Angular CLI, and you don't have to create any files manually. And in app by default, these are the files which you get. So that's why I'm opening this. We are not going to write this code here. So you will be able to see there is something called module, called component. And component, every component will have 4 files. So it will have your file where you will write your it will have a CSS file where you can write your links, and it will have a HTML where you can write your template. And this is how you want to create URLs, for example, here, right? So let me just go back to angular.io. So you can see whenever I click on any URL or any link, it goes to another page. So this is something you can do via browser. Okay. So let's go ahead and close this out and let's go back to this application where I've created something. But I'll remove this. So we need to from scratch and let's run this. So as we said, the command to run is ngserve. Okay. And you can also pass a flag called hyphen hyphen, which will open this application in the default browser. So whatever default browser you have, it will just open it. So I think this was created using 12.0.5, but doesn't matter. So anyways. Okay, so you can see our application is loaded right now. There is nothing, as I said, right now it's a blank page. And let's go ahead and add some content here. And this is where we will be talking about template. Now, to work on your front-end application or front-end, every technology or every front-end framework you choose, they have a different templates. So you have to understand a template whenever you work with any framework or any library, right? For example, React has something called JSX. Vue has .vue files which we create. Svelte has .svelte files which we create. Angular has .html. You don't have to create another file. You just have to understand HTML in a way. That's it. So let's see how to work with Angular templates. There are to understand the template templating engine, you have to understand few things, which is interpolation, property binding, and event binding. I think it's you can you Pranjal, can you change the view? I think you can just put the content in the center. I think right now it's half content and half us. Can you move us aside? So,
Yes, sir. Yes.
the earlier one was better. I mean, where there was the entire screen was shared and then there was just a speaker. I mean, my image on the side. So if you can change it to that. Yeah, this is much better. So yeah, so while working with Angular, you have to like understand three things properly. And once you are able to do this, it will be like easier. It will be easy to understand, but yes, Rakesh. So now this is your templating engine. So you have to understand three things: interpolation, property binding, and event binding to bind the data. So why we create front ends, right? So this is question I generally ask. So remember, we create front ends, so we get paid for it. right? I mean, of course, that's the whole point, right? If you don't get paid, why you will create your application? But that's jokes aside, why we create front end is something where we can display some now that information, or it can be dynamic, and you have to display those information on a page which your end user sees. And this is what this technique or this templating engine will let us do. So let's go ahead and create or render or display some information on the page. So let's say I have a name to display. I'll go to app component.ts, which is my TypeScript file. And here I'll just create a variable called name. And let's say this name has a value called Chintan, right? Now, what I want to display this value on this page, right? This is this UI which we have created. How we'll do that. So to achieve this, we can use the first way, which is called as interpolation syntax. So you can just use double curly brackets. This is a special Angular syntax, and just use the variable name which you want to display. So I can do something like this: name and colon and double brackets name. Let's go ahead and see our application, and you can see name displayed here. I'm sure it's really small. Let me just zoom in. See, the name is displayed here. That's why we create front ends. So you can take some information, display it on the front end, or and my end user sees that okay, something which is visible. So this is one way. This is one way to render information using interpolation syntax. There is another way. Angular allows you to actually use the HTML properties for data binding. Remember this. This is really important because it's something we use a lot in Angular. Any valid input property, any valid HTML property can be used for data binding. So for this example, I have used inner text. Inner text is a valid HTML tag property of div. So of course, you are say I don't know all the properties. It's okay. I don't know all the properties. So it's something which we search, right? Whenever we need something to be used, we generally search for it, and that's what you have. So here we know, okay, there is a property called text, and let's try to use this property to find some data. So here I will h1. I'll use h1 tag, and then I'll use this. Let's not use h1, and let's say I will use div. Okay. And let's say this. Um, there is another property called designation. Okay. This says our software engineer, and I want to display the designation here. So how we can do that? Of course, we can just use interpolation syntax. Is there any better way? Is there any other way? Yes, we can go ahead and use property binding. So generally, if you have to use inner text property in JavaScript, we generally do it like this. So we say document uh, dot get element by ID. In case you know a little bit JavaScript, this is how we do it. So get element by ID. We'll say div, and we'll say dot inner HTML or inner text equals to whatever value you want to assign. But if I tell you that okay, you don't have to do this. This is something Angular will do for you. Yes, that's what property binding. That's how property binding works. So I can just go ahead and use here. Remember, I have to just use box syntax, and then I can say inner text is equals to my variable name. So, designation. And you can see while working with template, I got all the intelligence. I mean, it is telling me that, okay, there is a designation variable which exists. To enable this intelligence, you have to go ahead and install an extension called Angular Language Service. Remember this. You can install this Angular Language Service and it will enable all this intelligence for you. Let's go ahead and see our application now. So we have two things. So name, and we have designation, so, which says software engineer. What else we want to do? So once we display some information in enterprise application, we may also want to collect information. How we do that? So generally what we do is we give some buttons to submit, right? When they submit, we do something. It means that's something called action or event. So what we need to do is we need to handle the event. So let's go ahead and see an example how to do that using the Angular template. So let's say I'll create a button here, and I'll say this button is button type button, and click. On click, I want to, let's say I'll show you another example. I want to show or hide uh, this particular div. So I'll explain one more property how you can actually use it. On click of this button, we will show hide this particular div. So I'm saying, okay, this is button, and here this is the thing. So generally, when you write your JavaScript syntax, you say on click, on double click, change, on blur. Angular simplifies that by using a syntax. This is known as banana syntax. Remember, this is called box syntax. Whenever we talk about property or property binding, we'll say box syntax. Whenever we say events, we will say banana syntax. So this is banana syntax. So you just have to remove on from JavaScript event and just replace it with a box, or sorry, with a banana syntax. That's it. So on click becomes click with a banana syntax. And now let's go ahead and handle this event. So we have to go ahead and use the TypeScript file, and let's use the toggle button. And I'll create a variable hidden, or let's say toggle is already function. So hide is equals. And whenever we click on, what we want to do is this dot hide is equals to not this dot hide. So we are just toggling. In case it's true, make it false. If it is false, make it. And now I'm going to use this property here. There's a property, HTML property called hidden, and I can use hidden equals to hide. Okay, so now I have seen property binding. I have we are going to see this event binding. So click on this toggle, and you can see this particular div, which is getting hidden, and then whenever you click, it comes back to your screen. So this is the power of using this property band. Of course, by using events, you can just go ahead and change the property values. So here is let me show you one more advantage of using this Angular language service. Generally, whenever we write code, we have tendency to write something wrong, right? I mean, we misplace, misspell a lot of things. I do that a lot. So in case I try to misspell anything, my templating engine or the Angular language service will tell you you're doing something because I see this variable does not exist. And this is productivity. You don't have to worry about your spelling mistakes while writing your code. You can just focus more on writing correct code. And Angular language service will let you know whenever you're going wrong. So this is about the templates. This is the basic you need to start working with Angular. As I said, it's just HTML. You don't have to do anything extra. The only thing which you have to learn about is these three ways: interpolation, property binding, and event binding. Now, next thing which we will talk about is dependency injection. So as I said, this is getting started, so I try to keep it as small as much small as possible. So here, dependency injection is one of the, what you can say, feature which makes Angular really difficult. Which makes Angular really different from all other frameworks or libraries which exist. Because dependency injection is something which is available from day one, and it is a very powerful feature. Whenever we talk about dependency injection, it's one of the design patterns. So if you go to .NET or Java, you will find dependency injection is used a lot, or you also know it as inversion of control. In case you don't know the word called dependency injection, it's IOC, inversion of control. And in case you are learning OOPS, I'm sure you might have heard about this word called inversion of control. So dependency injection allows us to actually do a lot of stuff. I'll go through it. So, but let's try to understand first. So DI is dependency injection is something which is out of the box. What I out of the box. So it's a part of the to do anything extra to take this feature or use this feature. Technologies, whenever we talk about dependency injection, you have to go ahead and do some configuration. Angular, zero configuration required. You can just start using dependency injection. How to do that? So what we achieve is independent injection. So here, what I will do is I will create another service. So whenever you create your application, what we generally do, we we want to get some data from my backend API. Most of the time, you will be doing that, right? You will have a backend which will give you the data, and you have to then render that information on your front end. That's what we do. That's what you go to any technology, that's what you will be doing. Either you will be responsible for writing that API, or you will be responsible for someone consuming that API, or you are someone responsible for where those APIs are deployed or where those applications are deployed. Infra, right? DevOps, how to build things, or how to give you servers and everything. So these are three important aspects of development. Here talking about two: writing the API and consuming the API. And from out of this two, we are going to do one, which is consuming the API today. So what about writing the API? We don't have any API right now. So we will be using a dummy API. So there is a website called JSON placeholder, which gives you a dummy API. So here you have a lot of APIs, dummy APIs which is available. One of them is let's use mm, posts. So we have a posts API. So you can see this is an API which gives you all this data. All this data is available. So let's say I want to get this information from this API, which is something which is already written for us, and we just need to consume it. How you will do this in Angular, and that's what we are going to do using dependency injection. So dependency injection lets you inject, and what you mean by inject, let me just give me just few seconds, and we'll be there. So first thing which we will do is I'm not going to add a lot of code into this component right now. So we will be creating another component. We'll learn how to create another component. So as I said, in Angular, you can use ng generate command, and then you can say C, which stands for component. So you can also write this as ng, G for generate, you can write entire generate, and C for component. Why? It's okay, it's up to you. Generally, when I am getting bored, I generally write generate and component, because I want to like spend some time doing nothing. So I hit extra keys to do that. Just jokes apart, but let's go ahead and say we want to create a component called posts. So this is the component name we will create. So we'll say this is posts component. And Angular creates a separate folder for element. Okay, remember this, keep this in your mind, because of course you will be otherwise keep wondering where my component is gone. And this is the component which we have. And now what we want to do is we want to get this data, all the data, and display this into our component on this HTML, which only says post word. So let's understand first thing first, that how to display this post component. So this post component can be displayed in two ways, either using routing, or by making it a part of my root component, or my first component, which is app component.ts. So I can just use uh, this component app posts like this. Okay, so now you have this app post component available, and this selector is something which is known as your HTML tag. So whenever we create component anywhere, like it's not only for Angular, whenever we create component, let it be React or let it be Vue, the components are something which is which is a HTML tag, which is your own HTML which you have been creating. So you can as a normal HTML tag here, and that's it. Let's go ahead and see. You should be able to see post work right now. And let's make a little bit changes here, and then you can will off. So I'll say h1 posts. And now coming to the second part, which is getting the data from the API. So generally, what a lot of developers do is they make their API calls from this particular file, post.component.ts, which you should not. Remember, whenever we talk about components are something which is for presentation. They should present. They should not be responsible how to get the data. And this is where Angular dependency injection really shines. So what you can do is you can create services for doing stuff. Getting the data, you can create a service, and then your component will be only responsible for presenting that component. So let's go ahead and create a service by using Angular. So I'll go inside this particular component, and I'll say nggs, which is ng service, and I'll call this as a post. Same name, post service, and we have our service available here. Okay. Now let's go back to the slides and talk a little bit about HTTP API calls, and then we'll come back. Calls, or to make HTTP calls, you have to use HTTP, something known as HTTP module, which is available and which allows you to use another service, which is built-in service, which is known as HTTP service. So let's go ahead and add this HTTP client module, which needs to be done here, app module. And I think I already might have this. So no, I don't have. Okay, good, no problem. I'll say HTTP client module, which comes from Angular // HTTP. As I said, Angular provides a lot of other tools with the framework itself. So they have also a utility or a module to make HTTP calls, which is HTTP client module. And now we can come to post service, and now we can use a service called HTTP, and we can use it like this. This syntax is something which may be new to you. Remember, this will not work anywhere else, right? So if we can pass properties, that's absolutely fine. But here, what we are passing is a class. It's a class. So if I go to HTTP client, the declaration file, you will see this is a class. Angular allows you to inject this class rather than doing this. If I cannot use dependency injection, what I will be doing? So I can do something like this. I can say, okay, this is HTTP client, and it says HTTP client. Sorry, equals to new HTTP client. So generally, this is how you create an class. Programming language, and this is something which you will use to create a new instance, right? Apart from some languages, of course. There is a downside to it. What in case if I create a new instance for HTTP and tomorrow they change the definition, change the signature of this particular service or this particular class? I'll be responsible for changing entire code base to make sure that my signature is now uh, compatible with the new changes. What in case I say you don't have to worry about in case someone changes the signature or in case someone adds a new method? Dependency injection for you. So here, Angular will be responsible for making sure that, okay, I I will be creating a new instance for you. You don't have to do anything. That's what Angular will be doing for us right now. So once a new instance is created, we can go ahead and utilize all the methods which is there. So I'll create a method called get post, and here I'll return this dot. Now these are all REST API methods which is available. So REST has like get, post, put, delete, batch options, JSONP, and batch. Okay, yeah, all these options are available. All these methods are available right now. The API which we have here is a get API. Okay, so we will be using http.get method, and get method only one parameter, which is the resource URL from where you will get the data. That's it. That's what it needs to know. We have this thing available. Let's go back to our component. And now, as I said, our service component will be only responsible for presenting the data. So who will provide this data now? The service. So I'll say private post service, and I'll create a property called post list, and we'll say this post service dot get post dot subscribe, and we can say this dot post list is equal to post. Okay, so we have done all this, but we got it. Now it says that okay, this object is not assignable to type never somehow. I mean, so you can see it says okay, I have this is equals to array. So I'm defining it to a new empty array, but it says somehow it says okay, it's a type of never. You can make it work by this, this type of any. I'm just showing you hack. Don't do that. Okay. Even I do this, so you will be able to see some error. So earlier it was saying never, now it says any. But you are still able to see this. Says okay, this is an object which I'm getting from the service, and you are trying to assign it to a wrong data type. Okay, that's how it works. So what else? What next to be done? So Angular allows you to do mappings. So all these APIs, all this values being sent by your API, you can map by creating an interface. So let's create that interface. So I'll say, okay, let's create. You can also do nggi, but create interface, I find it quick to actually go ahead and create, add new file. So I'll say this is post.ts, and you can do is export interface, and we can say a post. Now, what are the properties it has? So it has a user ID, which is of type number. Same for ID, which is also type title, which seems to be a string, and same for body, right? So it is also what it is. I created a signature of, or you can say, I created a signature how my response looks like. Now I have to map this response to this. So here, what I can do is I can say, okay, this post list is type of post array, and by default, it's an empty array. The error still exists. So here, what you can do is you can change the return type from object to post array. You can tell the get method, in Angular that, okay, whatever this response, which I am getting from the API, go ahead and convert this to an interface which contains the similar properties of type array. Just remember this. If I remove this, you will not get the similar data, right? So I'm saying, okay, this is a list, this is an, and now let's go back to the component and the error is gone. So we don't have this error anymore. Now let's go ahead and try to display this information by using interpolation syntax. And we will see one more thing, one more issue here. So let's see. Object, 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 object. That's it. What we are able to see right now. So the thing is, interpolation syntax works. It's an string, boolean, number, all this primitive data types. It will not work for arrays. So generally, to work on arrays in every programming language, you have for loop. So this will be the last example which we'll see. So here you can actually adapt this by using a pipe, this symbol, and this is an utility which exists, which is really useful for debugging, which will tell you how the data looks like. So this is the data. This is how my data looks like. Generally, just use it for debugging purpose. Don't use it on production. I mean, of course, this will look really ugly on production, right? Now let's see how to bind this. So here we'll be using a table and data, and let's see tr. We'll just write some code and then back. So I'll create a tr and then we have some headers, which is th. So what are the properties we have? So we have user ID. So here I'll say this is ID. It's th. I'll say this is user ID, title and body. And Angular gives you a method. Sorry, let me just format this. And so Angular gives you a method, or you can say a helper method called ngFor. So remember this star ngFor to work on arrays. So it's like a for loop. You can see its name is actually ngFor. So it says for. It is a for loop where we are saying let post. It means a single post of the entire array which we have as part of post list. Once we get the access to the single, so each and every row, we can go ahead and use our interpolation property and it will work. So we can just do something like below. Right? So we can do this. And you can see Angular knows that, okay, this is, I mean, it will also give you intelligence here. It knows, okay, this is of type. So it will let you know all the properties you have. So you cannot go wrong. And let me just remove this post list. And we have our first table or first information, which is being faced from an API. And now we are able to display that value inside a table. So let me see if I have Bootstrap installed here. I'm not sure if it is, but yeah, we do have Bootstrap. So let me just make this table responsive by adding a class called table. And this is it. So you have a responsive table which is created in Angular, which gets the data from backend and all the information is available here. So I think this is more than enough thing, or I would say a lot of things to grasp in a single in an hour. So let me know in case you have any questions, or as I said, you can also go to my YouTube channel and you'll be able to get some videos related to getting started with TypeScript and this basics which I have covered, and but in more detail. I think it's more than 7 to 8 hours of content. Even dependency injection itself is like around 2 hours of content which is available. So if you want to go more in depth, go ahead and see those videos, and I'll be planning to do more videos in future. So this is it for the day. In case you have any questions, please feel free to ask. And if we don't get time, probably come join me on Twitter, send me a DM. Once I'm available, I'll revert back to your questions. And once again, let me just show you my media Twitter handle. So you can always reach out to me on Santosh Yadav Dev. That's my Twitter handle as well as LinkedIn. Pranjal, you there?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So anyone, if you have any questions, please put them into the chat box.
Okay, Chintan has a good question. Which can be main factor for deciding whether to use React or Angular? Chintan, I'm sure until unless you are an architect or you are someone who is taking the decision for your organization, it is really hard to choose the framework. Most of the time, I think most of us are developer here, so most of the time it will be already decided for us. It's not up to us. You can have a saying that okay, we can use this particular thing or that particular thing, but mostly it is on based on your organization. They have already decided for you, and now organization may differ what uh, framework they want to use, and every framework out there has enough jobs for us. So unfortunately, we are not one who decides that we want to use this framework until unless you are doing your own startup. But if you have to like give some Chintan, in case you have to give uh, some pointers why which one we should go. I mean, Angular really shines in enterprise applications because it is really easy. I mean, it becomes not easy, but I think it's whenever when your application grows, right, it becomes really hard to maintain that particular application. So which is of course I have seen React has like different structure in different projects. Angular has same structure, so it is easy to like learn. And even if you move to another organization, it is really easy to understand because you have been using the same folder structure, same project structure in your previous project. So it becomes a little bit easy. Your application grows. It is not a mess. It's not a mess where my code is really structured, really well structured, and that's what most of the enterprise application needs. So Cisco has been investing a lot. Deutsche Bank recently, last year, they said they will be migrating everything to Angular. So a lot of big enterprise applications are already using Angular, so don't worry about it. Bootstrap versus JavaScript, I think Tushar, that's wrong comparison at all. Comparison together, I mean, Bootstrap is something is a CSS library, and then JavaScript is a language. So you cannot, of course, compare CSS to JavaScript. Both are different. Rajshikar says, and what if you are deciding for college project? Rajshikar, if deciding for college project, do something which you want to learn. Don't just go with Angular because I said it. Just go ahead and do something which you think, okay, this is something which I want to do after my college. I want to do React. I want to do Who. Choose that particular thing and do your project in that. Same applies for your personal projects. Any disadvantage of Angular compared to React? I mean, Shreyash, every framework and every language has its own advantages and disadvantages. So, only there are no disadvantages, but I would say the learning curve is little bit difficult in Angular because you have a lot of concepts. You have to let's say understand dependency injection. You have to understand how observable works, which I didn't went into more detail. But yes, those things are really powerful, but once you learn it, it becomes you will really love it. The only thing is the learning curve is a bit tough, and most of the languages and frameworks are getting inspiration from each other, so they complement each other, I would say. Satyajit says, is necessary to learn TypeScript? Yes, that's a requirement. Chintan, thank you Rashikar, and I think we don't have questions. So yep, so even I have to join my daily call in 30 minutes, and I have to be ready for that. So thanks a lot everyone for joining. And in case, as I said, feel free to reach out to me on my social media. I would love to answer those questions.
Okay, thank you, sir, for enlightening all of us with your knowledge. It was really great session and it gave us deep insights about Angular. Your valuable words will definitely help us all in future. All the audience, thank you for being such a lovely audience. Of you. So, how does a Microsoft certification for each and every one of you sound? Right? Exciting, right? So, you just have to complete a very few easy steps. First, you have to register yourself for the AdSign company giveaway, and second, you have to join the Azure developer community on Discord channel. I'll share the links in the chat box shortly. We hope you all are having a great time in Full Stack Squared. Before stopping here, I would like to tell you that many activities and challenges are live on our website. So you can go and check them on our website and participate too. Also, stay connected with us on our socials and Discord. The next session, our keynote session with Chris Swan, which will be hosted on YouTube, will start shortly. I'll share the link, YouTube link also. So see you there in the next talk. Thank you.
Thank you, Pranjal. Have a great day. Bye, 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 everyone.
Have a great day.
Okay.